So this is Clarama. So she is currently a product manager at Oculus, which is also part of Facebook. She has an untraditional career journey starting in the public sector, and she's transitioned into tech as a freelance web developer in New York City in 2014. She then moved to London, so she actually is very much familiar with us here. Um, where she learned interaction design for her master's. And then now she self-taught herself to become a developer for VR for her research thesis. Since then, she's worked as a UX practitioner and at different startups in London, San Francisco, and Alaska. And she then became an entrepreneur and she produced a VR app that tries to essentially combat racial bias. So I'm really interested to kind of hear more about that. Now she has now works at Oculus, and she's been working there for about 2.5 years. So over to you, Clarama.
Oh, thank you. Hi.
Mhm.
So just before I go into it, is it just like me talking at everyone, or is it like a Q&A, or just kind of how long should I tell my story for?
For
What's
about an
what's
hour and a half, and then there'll be time
okay?
to for Q&A. Yeah, for you just
Okay.
talk. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Hi everyone. Let me see if I could see. Do we have like a view? I'm on a speak. Let me see if I can see gallery. Oh, there's everyone. Hi everyone. Nice to see you all. Yeah, so my name is Clarama Dervilius. As she mentioned, I'm born and raised in San Jose, California. So it's in the Bay Area. And if anyone's familiar with Silicon Valley, it considers itself to be the heart of Silicon Valley. A lot of where the old tech companies are, like Adobe, like IBM, Microsoft, like most of those companies that have been around for 40, 50 years, Cisco, they mostly are in San Jose. But as like the new wave of tech has emerged in the last 20 years, I think it's a 2002 .com boom, like all the Facebooks and they are kind of spread out across the peninsula. So anyways, I'll say that. So my dad worked he worked an overnight shift at National Semiconductor, which at that time was a Silicon Valley company that produced silicon chips for so this is before they like had shipped these jobs overseas, when they used to manufacture the chips in the Bay Area. And so my dad is from Haiti. He did like a 6-week training course, and this was the first job that he got, which is I think it's through Job Corps, and he would work overnight. I forgot exactly what he would be doing. He wasn't like a computer scientist or anything like that, but he'd be helping put the physical chips together. And then my mom was my mom was a nurse's assistant. So my mom was from Eritrea. They met in Job Corps, my parents, and she worked as a nurse's assistant at one of the local hospitals in San Jose for basically the next 30 years, until again, economy kind of has like tanked in maybe about 15 years ago, during the first housing crisis in 2009. And then she's been working as like a personal caretaker ever since. So growing up, for me, I did not ever think a tech I didn't even know what a tech career was. I did like I enjoyed like watching Star Trek. One of my dad's favorite shows was Star Trek, and I used to love watching it because of LeVar Burton. I was like, oh, there's a black person on it, so like that was what got me stuck. And then plus he also used to do Reading Rainbow, and so I used to love reading when I was a kid, and I think I was kind of already a little bit of an introvert, but I had like a big imagination, and I loved being very creative. But I remember when I was a kid, like, okay, well, I was thinking like, okay, I have to do my career. Like my dad says, I have to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. But I'm like, I don't know if those are the right for me. Like I need to make sure that whatever the career I have, and I think it was like 8 or 9. I think it was like 7 or 8 when I thought this, because I told myself I'm going to find out what I'm going to make sure that I know what I want to do by 10. Like I gave myself a deadline that by age 10, I'm going to know like the career I'm going to have, so that way I could get started early. So like you hear about these people who like known since they're a kid, I want to be a doctor, and then I'm gonna like, and then they kind of like do it for the rest of their life. Like I wanted to be that, and so I was just like, okay, my mission then is to figure it out. What is the thing that I love to do? What is my passion? And then I'll figure it out by age 10, and then I'll start in middle school and start preparing for that career trajectory. Whew. Long story short, I probably, my exploration into different career paths I probably easily have worked over 20 to 30 jobs, figuring out what I want to do. And by age 9 or 10, I did get a core thing down. So what I did get by the end, age 10 was not like, this is what my job would be, but it was, my dad took me to Haiti for the first time when I was a kid, and we visited his family in the city and then traveled to the country where he grew up. And I had a huge culture shock. I loved it there. But I just was not, the poverty was just like, coming from San Jose, which was like working class, very diverse neighborhood. Every house was from a different country, but they're all immigrants who are working full time. And at that time, a $50,000 salary could get you $150,000 really nice house, and a $5,000, $10,000 like sturdy car for the family. And so with 2 working parents, like that was doable. So coming from that life and then going to Haiti and seeing the contrast in that, I remember just being really shocked by that. But and my takeaway after coming back after 3 weeks was like, okay, I feel like, one, I'm like, why is America not helping if Haiti is so close to America? Like, why does it look so poor? And why are people having to use the bathroom outside in an outhouse where there's tarantulas and like, and like, little things like that. And but then I also wondered, like in America, I was like, I also felt like the people there were so much more happier. And I felt like, oh, America, we have all these different things. We have toilets, we have plumbing, like we have houses. We don't have to worry about bugs coming in. We have electricity 24 hours, but we're not happy. Like nobody here is happy in the same way that I've ever felt it when I went to that country. So I knew then, and what I did with my career, I needed to have like an impact. I was like, whatever. I was like, okay, the job that I'm going to do is I'm going to make I don't know if I want to say I was going to have a positive impact in the world. And I wanted to start with community. And I knew, I was like, well, I don't know. I think going through high school, I started that, okay, now that I know, I'm going to go back to Haiti and like help improve the communities. Let me start figuring that out now. I was like, okay, well, I can't go to Haiti now because I'm like 12 or whatever. So I was like, well, what can I do? Okay, so I'm going to start fixing the communities around me now. And so when I would go to high school, I went to the second worst high school in the district. Actually, I went to the top high school for my freshman year. And that was just a super unhealthy, very toxic environment. It was the first I had growing up in San Jose. It's majority like Vietnamese, Asian, and Latin communities for the most part, and where I grew up. And so I was used to being the only Black person, and there's usually no white people. But there was no sense of like race, and I mean, like issues or anything like that. Like there was no consciousness or identity around race. There was different cultures, but that was about it. And it wasn't until I went to this high school that was the second best high school in the district. I don't know how they do things, and I forgot how they do the high school thing here. But districts, San Jose is the 10th largest city in America, so as a result, a high school district can have 14 different schools. That kind of operates in unit. But depending on where the schools are, they're funded by the local property management tax. So if your school is in a poor area, it's not going to get much funding. But if your school is in a rich area, it's going to feel that way. You'll see that in the structure, the infrastructure, the opportunities they provide, the sports, everything. So the school that I went to was in a very wealthy area, San Jose. And even though I did not live in that area, but like I was able to there was some kind of diversity program that wanted to encourage mixing, socioeconomic mixing. So I did that program. And so when I joined that first year, and it was a predominantly white school, but it was also the largest Black community I've ever experienced. And so I think it was about 2,000 kids. There's about 200 Black people. And then again, like majority white. There was not that much Mexican, Asian, but I just found I remember my first day being in class and there was 5 other Black girls. And I remember just like, whoa, I've never been in a class with another Black girl before. And after the first period was over, they all like cornered me because I didn't go to the same middle school as them. And they're like, or they're like, where'd you come from? Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're going to show you around. And so they like gave me a tour of the school. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. But then at the same time, it was also weird because they're like, okay, Black people hang out here in the quad. This is called Africa. But because we're freshmen, we can't hang out underneath the shed. So even if it's hot, you have to hang outside, be outside the shed. You're not allowed to go under until sophomore year. And I was like, what? And they're like, this is Mexico. This is where all the Mexicans hang out. This is the fishbowl. This is where the skaters hang out. And I'm like, that was just like, I remember just being cold. Like, I was like, what is this? Like, and I remember, and I was like, this is so weird. And how it was very segregated to the point where like, I would make friends who were like Asian or Mexican in some of my classes, but I couldn't hang out with them in public because if Black people saw me hanging out with non-Black people, they would like, I would get jumped or I would get bullied or like, it was just like really weird. And like white people would call us the colored people. Like, it was just like a really unhealthy environment, a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking. And I just remember my freshman year being like, I don't feel like I can be myself here. I can't. And I hated that tremendously. And so what I did was I transferred to the worst performing school, well, second to worst performing school in the district, which was, again, maybe it was one white person for all 2,000 students, and then about 18 Black people, most of them from first generation. And the rest like Latino and Asian. And there, it's like back to like this race doesn't exist, or like, not in that sense. It was not an identity trait. Everyone just hung out with whoever you had things in common with. And you can hang out, like you could float. There was no like theater kids here, musician kids here. It was just like, you can be whatever you want and you can hang out with whatever you want and have fun. And so as a result, in that environment, I thrived and I tried to do everything. I think I did sports. I did sports. I was year-round sports. I was like all-league MVP for volleyball and a 2-year MVP for basketball. I was in leadership groups. I was a president of the Black Student Union. I was in theater and I ran shows and did stage show management. I think I won an award for like most outstanding actress in a musical. So like I got to do all these things, but it was because it was easy to be a big fish in the small pond because the pond didn't have much there anyways. Whereas like the second biggest high school in the district was very, how do I say it? If you didn't start playing volleyball in 3rd grade, you were not going to get into the volleyball team at that high school. So your parents had to invest that into your career, and then you had to audition and try out, and then that's how you got it. So I at that school, I would have not have been able to explore all these different skill sets or hobbies or extracurriculars because of that barrier. So I got to do that in a poor school, but that just meant that I had less access or understanding of how to get into college, how to get into all of that. And so again, I lucked out, got into a small gate program where they only accepted 30 kids out of the like 500 in my class every year. And in that course, they like taught you how to do the SAT test. I don't know if you guys do that in London. They taught you how to apply for college. So, okay. So that's my like childhood, all of that. Right. So in college, I continued to explore. I tried criminal justice because I still was struggling to figure out, okay, where's the best place that I can have a meaningful impact, and what are the things that I like to do every day, so that I can figure it out. And they always say, like, because I was struggling, I was like, I like to do everything. I love theater. I love leading a club. I love doing debate. I was like, okay, maybe I will do this lawyer track. And so like that was my biggest struggle, figuring out if I can nail it down to like one type of skill set, but then because I would get bored easily after a while if that was the only thing, or understimulated. So in college, I was like, okay, well, I know they say like, if you could be anything in the world that you want to be, and like money and all of that is like not an issue, what would you be? And I'd be like, oh, okay, I know I want to be a superhero. I was also obsessed with superheroes. And so like, if I could be a superhero, what is the closest thing to find in that in real life? And so I was thinking, okay, and this is pre BLM movement and everything like that. I actually thought cops were the closest thing to be a superhero. And in San Jose, we had a really great, before the recession, and they laid them all off and they hired all these new young cops that are not really trained well and dealing with a lot of aggression. And so that's there's some issues there now. But growing up, the cops were always fun and cool people. They practiced something called community policing. So they would walk around neighborhoods or like be on horses on schools, and they would just generate relationships with people, local people. So my interactions with police were always positive. They would come into the class. I'd always ask them, like, we would bug them with funny questions, and they'd always entertain us. So I had a positive idea of what a police officer does. And I also was like, okay, but they also get to save lives. They also they're the person at the shootout that like helps somebody escape or all of that. And I wasn't afraid to die, but like for that reason. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be a cop. So I was at college, and there was a cop just hanging out by his car, and I was like, hey, I was like, I'm interested in being a officer. Like, what do you recommend? Like, I do. And he was like, oh, he was like, well, are you in college? I was like, yeah, I go to the school. And he was like, oh, don't go to school. Just go straight to just apply, and you go to a boot camp, and then that's the way you do it. You don't need to go to school for this. And I was like, that's not an option. I have to go to school. So then I went to another police station, and I asked them, I was like, hey, I'm interested in becoming a cop, but I want to go to school. Like, was there a way, like, what's the best way, or how can I prepare? And they're like, you don't need to go to school, like, just come in. And I was like, okay, well, what does the job entail? They're like, you do the boot camp, you do the physical training, and then you follow orders. We tell you what to do, you go do it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, but can I make my own decisions and about what to do? And because I like to use my own head, I have a mind, I like to like figure things out. And they're like, no. Like, you don't do that. You're on the field and you do what you need to do. Obedience is like a really core trait for the policing. And I'm like, okay, I already know I'm not an obedient person. If I think a certain way, if I have a different opinion about something, I'm gonna pursue that. And I trust my judgment. So I was like, I knew this is not going to be for me. I explored firefighting, but I knew I did not like to see burns and people like injured. So that was like crossed off the list. I studied criminal justice, or I studied political science. So I went to 4 different colleges because I had to struggle. My parents were getting a divorce at that time, struggled paying for it. So it was just a really weird journey. So in US, we have something called state universities. So these are funded by the state. They subsidize your tuition. Then we also have private universities, a little bit more expensive and more prestigious. Then you have you have state universities. Sorry, they have San Jose State, and then we have I don't know what that's called. It's like University of a City, and I feel like that's like, maybe it's a federal university or something. I don't know. And then we have community colleges. Community colleges are free for the community. You go, but it's like the lowest of the low. Like, it's like, yeah, there's no real degree you get in there. But when you do go to those schools, you go for 2 years, and you can transfer into a really predominant school, like a prestigious school. And when you do that, you save 2 years of money. But the problem is someone say something? Oh. The problem is you lose that amount. So you lose that 2 years. Like, you're not really part of that school community. Like, by coming in as a transfer, there's that kind of little mark on your thing. So I think Barack Obama did something similar to this. He went to Occidental College. I don't know if it was a community college, but he did go to Occidental College. And then he transferred to Yale after 2 years. And again, it's just like a cheaper solution rather than going for all 4 years. Because of my struggle, I went to San Jose State. I went to a university, then I went to a community college, and then I went to a private university, Jesuit Catholic school. And that's like the most expensive as it can get. But I got a few grants after knocking down quite a few doors to be able to stay there. And what I really loved about that particular university was it gave me even though it was predominantly white, unhealthy, like the first high school experience I had, there was a community of people of color. We had a little sanctuary. The school was so old and very racist, to the point where we had to have cultural centers, which I think is just the modern day way of saying colored sections of the school. So we had multicultural dorms, which is 2 buildings on campus that were the oldest buildings on campus, like oldest, and like things were broken down all the time. It wasn't cute, like whatever. That's where all the people of color lived. And then you had the multicultural center, which was a student-run organizational like office. It was Mexican student union. They call it Mecha, Indian, Pakistani, Asian, APSU. They had basically all the different cultural groups. We all combined there. We would run our groups there, our clubs there. We would also hang out there. We would study there. We would like anytime we're in between classes, we just like chat and blah, blah, blah there. And that community was amazing. And I loved being around that environment where everyone was different, but we all connected on mutual interests. Like race wasn't a thing, but we all had a shared experience of having to experience racism on a day-to-day on that campus. And so having those bonds that I could forge with was just everything. So I wanted to go to school specifically for that community. And because my best friends were there as well. And so they had limited studies, but political science was what I did because I felt like that if I could understand the way the world works, then I could have, from the government perspective, then I can be able to design my life of impact accordingly, because I felt like government and politics was the strongest way to make impact. So I did that. And as a result, I explored work. I did one semester in Washington, D.C. I was in a political science course. We're studying transforming communities and justice studies. So transforming communities was part of the curriculum where they would take us to these low-income communities, and we would have to like study them, interview people, figure out a research thesis of how to design to improve the quality of life for these communities. What are the barriers? What are the, like economically or socially, like culturally, what is that? And then identify that and then try to figure out a solution for them. Then the other part, justice studies, what they would take us to the Supreme Court. They would take us to all the different court justices like office. So to learn about how criminal justice works at the federal level, and also since Washington D.C. wasn't really a state, it was just like at that level, and we would speak to the chief of police there, and they taught me the term of community policing and how that was actually the most effective way for them to be able to do their jobs, but also at the same time, because they're building relationships with the community, but also at the same time, the most expensive. However, now that's completely gone. And I feel like what we see now in America is so this is 2008. And I think the housing crisis, the recession started in 2009. When they did that, they laid off a lot of these cops, almost like half, if not 3/4 of the workforce. And they took on cheaper cops, but they do not, instead of teaching them community policing because it was more expensive, they bought military weapons for cheap, gave it to them, threw them out on the streets, and chaos it has ensued. And there's always been like policing issues, particularly to specific areas, like outside of like just natural history stuff, but it wasn't like, it would be like LAPD was like notoriously corrupt, or like New York NYPD notoriously corrupt. But most of the places in between, like it's like the city that I was in, that was not too much of the case. Now it's just like a different world. Even San Jose police are completely different, and the vibe is different. You feel it. And that was 2016 when I came back, and I felt that. Anyways, all that's to say. Once I graduated, when I was in that DC program, I did an internship at a nonprofit law firm. I really enjoyed getting to work and meet with people directly. And it was in that experience when I had to go to all these houses, and the nonprofit like helped represent low-income residents who were subjected to living in to some poor housing quality conditions. So for example, DC, if you're familiar with the weather there, it can get really cold during the winter, 15 degrees, 10 degrees. I forget what that is in Celsius. I want to say like -5 or something. I don't know. Yeah, so but like the landlord wasn't fixing their heater. So like a family will live in this poor income house, and they'll have to use they'll have like 4 kids, and they'll have to use like the stove to heat up the place, which is super unhealthy because that uses carbon monoxide, and it's just it can cause damage to the brain. So, but that's what they were relying on because the landlords weren't doing the thing. So what they would do is they would come to the law firm. The law firm would represent them for free, sue their landlords, and help them get their stuff fixed. And me as an investigator would go to their house and note all the quality conditions of the house. Oh, there's a crack in the window. This AC is broken, blah, blah, blah. I would do that. So when I would do that, I would go to these people's houses and I would see their conditions of how they lived. Second life culture shock was just how bad, like to me, these houses were worse than the conditions that I've seen in Haiti. Like even the houses that were like created by leaves and like branches that I had to sleep in, they had like tarantulas around the place. like I felt like the houses there were still more better than the houses in DC. So I went to the first house that I went to, it wasn't a house, so these are government housing that they would give to, and it was predominantly Black American residents. And you could see the Capitol from the distance, right? From where the state housings were. And I would go I remember we knocked on the door. This boy, like could have been like more than 13, opened the door. And he like was kind of just like in a state. I don't know what state it was, but he was just in a state. He was just like, yeah. We went in. He was like, I was like, hey, I'm here to like, record all the violations and da da da. And he was like, yeah, sure. He like opens the door. He's like, the family stays upstairs. We don't come downstairs just because of the roach infestation. And so when I looked, it was like he opens the door. The wooden floors, a lot of them were like very just old, decrepit, rusted, holes in it. They're coming out of it was termites, like just a whole bunch of termites. I don't know if you've seen termites before, but like a whole bunch, like hundreds of them on the floor. There were roaches everywhere, and not like cute roaches. I don't know if you had these roaches in, I don't even know. I don't remember seeing roaches in London, but huge, gigantic, East Coast, like New York style roaches, like gigantic. Like these things could be like the size of my thumb. All over the living room, all over the kitchen, all over just climb of the ditches. They opened the door to where the radiator was, and like there were a horror movie style 80 like roaches like squirming all over the place on the door. The house had a smell to it that was something was like rancid or whatever. They took us upstairs to where the family was kind of like in refuge in one of the bedrooms. And they're like, yeah, the roaches don't come upstairs. So that's why the family's there. And that was a lot more like in nicer condition. But the windows were broken. The AC was broken. The heater and the AC was broken. So in the summer, it gets really hot. And also in the winter, it gets freezing. So they talked about like the different ways that they stay cold or they stay warm. They had like a whole bunch of fans and stuff. And there was like 4 kids all under the age of like 7, you know what I'm saying? Like, or 10. And it just was so depressing to me. It was just so depressing to like think that this in the nation's capital is the condition of a family and how they live in government state housing. And so this was just the first of many houses. This is like, I was like, maybe it's just this one. No, every single one was just really bad. And all these, and it was mostly Black people that are living in these conditions. And the way that they would talk about the things that like, I got a cat because it would take out the termites and the roaches, or the bathroom in the thing is rickety, like the panels going like this, and you can see down below because DC houses are built with like 6 feet on top of ground. So this older woman, 70 years old, the landlord wouldn't fix it. So when she uses the bathroom at night, she has to be mindful of not stepping into the hole. God forbid she like falls through. And it was just crazy, crazy, crazy conditions. And so, yeah, so at that point I was like, oh shit, here I am trying to like, oh, help, Haiti needs help. I was like, America is like, not in it's a league here, like it's different. I was like, we need it too, like, and to the nth degree. It's not all like the extremes are real, the polar opposite of like really nice blah 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 houses, but like we have the exact opposite here and nobody cares. And to me it was just that same feeling I felt when I was in Haiti, and I was like, why is nobody caring? Like, why blah blah blah? Like, at least Haiti people were happy, they made life what it was. Like, it was still comfortable for them. I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, like there's definitely more places where that sucks, but like they knew how to make a home out of like, I remember visiting my aunt who lived in the jungle, super isolated, but it felt like a home, like, like she just lived amongst nature. Like she had like her little grill and like, she'd hang her clothes across 2 trees, and and it didn't feel like they were like in poor conditions. Whereas in these places, it felt toxic. It felt like the home was killing them potentially, but they didn't have nowhere else to go.
I sorry, Clara, I'm sorry to cut
Yeah,
you. Sorry.
yeah, yeah,
We just had one question come in.
yeah,
It came in from Marika. I understand like obviously the journey to where that kind of stop work that you did at Haiti and also within the government, it's really probably impacted how you kind of pivoted into VR.
yeah.
The question we've got here is, what's a day? What can you share with us a day in the life of what it feels like to be a product manager at Oculus, and how did you kind of end up at Oculus as well? So yeah.
Yeah, it's not a simple story, but to cut through the 20s, it's definitely not a simple story. I didn't, like I said, I didn't know what computer or science or tech was. I worked in a nonprofit, and I'll try to do this in 30 seconds. I worked in nonprofit. I in various different roles: computer, local government, AmeriCorps, which is kind of Peace Corps but domestic, and then eventually Silicon Valley Leadership Group, which was like a lobbyist group. And in that role is where I discovered graphic design, but I didn't know the term of it. I just loved doing all the flyers and all of that for our events that I had to organize, and I felt like that added like it was allowing me to be creative in a non-creative role, but I got a lot of pushback. So then I had like a mid-20s crisis because I was like, I really want to be more creative in whatever meaningful impact I have. And I was not able to do that in a place that I felt like I was able to have really meaningful impact. I couldn't be creative. I was like, this is weird. How do I marry both? So moved into, did some traveling, solo traveling, got a better sense of my identity through that. Moved to New York, met a graphic designer at one of the nonprofits I worked at there. At that time it was an animal shelter. She taught me, she let me watch her. I would shadow her working on the different programs. And I just remember having like this feeling of like, oh my gosh, I feel God, kind of like a feeling. And then so did that. So once I knew that was like the job, the thing that I think I needed to do. So I didn't have any computers or anything like that, but I went to the library, borrowed like Photoshop for Dummies, learned that, and then and eventually used my tax returns to buy a Mac, and then started practicing there. Eventually quit my job, worked as a server at a restaurant. And then my mentor, she told me at the time, I learned about freelancing. She was like, yeah, if you want to be competitive as a graphic designer, you should learn how to code, just a little bit of HTML and CSS, and then you'll be competitive, especially in the freelance world. I was like, okay, this is 2013, 14. So this wasn't a big field back in the day. I found an online course, how to code your first website from scratch using HTML, CSS, and jQuery. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll use this to learn this to make my first graphic design portfolio. Once I did that course, I did that over the New York winter. A lot of bad things happened, but ducks fell in a row. I was able to volunteer full-time for an NGO in London. And while I was doing that full-time in London, I was actually doing that volunteering. I was working for Issa Rae. I secured a role with her to build a website for her. She was trying to create like a BuzzFeed for women of color. So I worked with her and I was building the website. She would have writers that would contribute articles every day, and I just style it and publish it for her. And then so I would work at the NGO by morning and afternoon, and then in the evening, because when I was in London at this time working at this NGO, and so I would wake up 7 a.m., go with them, volunteer all day, then come back to the house at 5 p.m. And then start doing work for Issa Rae because she was based in LA at the time, and so her day started. The day started here, and then I work until 2:00 in the morning, and so that was like that every single day. I was getting paid $100 a week with Issa Rae. That translated to 50 pounds in New York, and in London. I was living in Chelsea, so I had the woman who owned the NGO. She let me rent her daughter's room for super cheap, and I had like a couple months of money saved up, and so this 50 pounds was like my my week, like beer, food, groceries, like transportation, like that kind of money. Did that for about a few months. I really loved London so much, so I ended up applying to looking at grad school so I can stay. I applied to University of Arts London. This was an interaction design course. I was looking for, I want to make websites better. I want to make sure that when I'm building a website and designing a website for an entrepreneur, for a minority owned business, it's optimized by the design to convert to one, attract their customer base that they want or the community, and it's optimized for them to convert them in the way that they want, whether it's leads, money, or sales. I want to make sure my designs are contributing to that conversion rate for them in a successful way. And so I didn't know, I was like, I can make this up, and based on my own like skill sets of understanding people and how to design for that, but I'd love to know what the industry standard was. So I was looking for courses like that, and that's when I found this interaction design course. When I went to the open house, they're like showing us like, oh, here's a pot that moves to your, like a pot with a plant that moves to your touch. And I was like, this is weird. I was like, this is not the course. I was like, I just want to know how to make better websites. Like, then the professor was like, oh yeah, no, you'll do that too. He completely lied. He was like, yeah, you're going to do that too. It's just like, this is other things that you can do. And I was like, okay, as long as you're going to help me make better websites, then that's all I care about. And so I applied, and I was already late to apply to any other grad school anyways. Like, this is like in August. So this is like one of the very few schools I was taking. This is at UAL, London College of Communication. This is only school that was taking applications. I got accepted, came to join that course. And in that course, so this is my, like I'm talking about now, this is how I discovered VR. So if I have an hour and a half, because I can talk forever, but like I can go into that part, or do you want me to just go into the day in the life of a PM?
Sorry, I was muted. So if you can go into a day in the life of a PM, and I guess if we have more time,
okay. How much time do we have? Sorry, I thought we had an hour and a half.
We're meant to finish by 3. So if we don't mind, probably another 10 minutes.
Okay.
About that, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So, okay, so yeah, of that. Now I'm in a VR. Okay. So a day in the life of the PM, every day is different. Every day is completely different. I hate this answer. I know it's not one of those careers that you can easily define. Imagine being a CEO of a company. Every day is different. There are some based on the needs of the product. I think I would say so the role is more narrower, and that when you're a CEO for a company, you're doing a lot more business, accounting, legal. You're kind of not worried about that when at Facebook, the way that Facebook runs. And like I said, a PM is going to look different at different companies. But I think there's some typical journeys I can kind of highlight and discuss. At Facebook runs at like I've only been a PM at Facebook, so I can't say what it's like at other companies, but Facebook runs like an incubator. Facebook is the investor. Mark Zuckerberg is your investor, and each team is a startup. And so if you've ever been in an incubator, understand how that works. It's basically all these teams working independently. You're technically building for one machine and for one product. And to do that well, you have to build relationships with the other teams who are doing something that's similar that you're doing. And like, hey, we need this to be able to work with our thing that we're trying to build. And then so you kind of have to negotiate. So as a PM at Facebook, my job is I know what our product is, set the vision for the team. The team has to all be in a line, like the immediate core team, my engineer, like depending on how staffed my team is, based on the budget allocated to my product. I might have a couple engineers, a designer if I'm lucky, a data scientist to help us make more informed decisions, and like legal and privacy experts to like work with. When we're going 0 to 1 on a project, I create a vision. So I create this it might be 20-page, 30-page doc where I'm like, this is everything that we need to build. This is what we need to do. This is why we need to do it. This is how this issue came about. And if we do this in this way, this is the expected impact we'll have. XYZ amount of people will be able to do this. We improve, blah, 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 blah. This is going to help us meet our mission to help bring the world closer together, or in Oculus case, for my product specifically, is like revolutionize VR development, like make it so much more easier. I used to develop for PC, which was a lot more seamless of an experience. However, the future, at least for the way our company sees it, is standalone. And that's like the lucrative product that's going to be mass produced. And when you're building for standalone, you're working on a completely limited computer OS system with very limited RAM and very little memory, and you're asking it to give world building experience, magical experiences in the same way that a PC can offer. So to do that, developing then for Android just becomes its own beast. You have to worry about things that you didn't have to worry about in developing for PC, which is like performance and optimization. You have to worry about like making sure like your graphics that are super detailed and really beautiful, which is really important for the experience, also don't cost the CPU or GPU that much to run. So there's a lot of new things, constraints you have to be mindful for while you're developing, and you have to test for all these new inputs and for like through 6DoF movement in terms of like the controllers and the tracking sensors and all of this stuff. And so when you're developing for PC and you start to develop for Quest, it's just a painful, like already VR development in and of itself, like regardless of platform, is just a lot right now. And then on top of that, now we're trying to make you do it in a very hard position. So our mission is like, we're going to make it simple. Like, and this is a very ambitious, how are you going to make something as complicated simple? I don't care if we can be simple for what is it like for a Squarespace, or like, what is it like, building a website now? Like, yes, there's going to be a road to get there. And it's my job to paint that picture of what the road will be to get there. These are all the things to do. These are all the pain points we'll need to solve for. These are all the challenges, and these are the solutions and what they should look like. And this is the priority in the way that we meet those goals. And this is the way we know as we build them and launch them, this is the way we know that it's successful or not. And if it doesn't hit this bar, we know we failed, or this wasn't actually the right solution. So it's very risky. The role, it demands trust from your team. It doesn't demand trust because you have to do this, but they don't. If the team is not bought into your idea, if they don't believe in your vision, they're not going to stay on your team. They don't have to. This is not, your role is not, you don't have any authority as a product manager. Your ability to influence really has to come in other ways. And that's probably the biggest struggle of a PM. Sometimes you'll see a vision, you'll communicate it, but not everyone will be aligned or believe in it. Or if you're a really good PM, people are going to believe in it. So it's like same thing like a president. If you're running for like Barack Obama, like he was able to say things in a certain way. And I think if you can have those type of skill sets, you're going to be a strong PM already. Like you can do nothing else. And as long as you could make people feel good about what they're building, make people feel excited about the product, make people like feel like they're making a difference, you already are a successful PM in that alone. Then there's the other half. Okay. Yeah. So this becomes 10x harder to do when you're a Black woman. So if you're in an environment that's male dominated, sometimes you have more privileges to just say things, and the trust is like automatically kind of earned. Now Black women as PM, we're not common. I think I was less than 10 when I came into the company. You can imagine I was 60,000, like, you know what I'm saying? So now I'm joining these teams where they're not used to seeing people, like I'm maybe an intern, like, that's what people like me look like when we come into these places where they're maybe interns or diversity and inclusion recruiters. Like we're not product managers. We're not the leaders of a product team. So I have to deal with a lot of like helping people. I had to earn a lot of trust, even though I had the experience, I had the background, I have the passion, and I know I believe in this vision. I know that what the vision should be. I still struggle with earning trust on a regular basis. But to that being said, I've been very grateful that to this point, like I haven't had any. I've heard some I've heard a lot of horror stories when you don't just, and people leave and I have not experienced that yet. So I'm very grateful. So I think I'm able to, I think as a passionate person, because of the job I love, and that's another thing, like when you are really passionate about your role or passionate about your job, that's going to carry through. People are going to see that, and that's infectious no matter what. So they might have resistance, but if you truly believe in that and you're confident about that, and sometimes confidence comes from, I did the work, I looked at the data, I understood, blah, blah, blah. I have a very solid logic framework that is like undeniable. Like when I share this framework with the team, all the questions and stuff like that, they're like, yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I don't know if I believe in you, but damn, your logic is sound. So like that alone is its own like tool. And then over time, the more wins you get, the more that they begin to trust you. And then it just becomes easier. The other side of the job is you're managing a lot of relationships. So the team is saying, okay, you're one, having to make decisions, like you're making product decisions every day. The engineers are going to come to you when you say, this is what we need to build and this is what it needs to look like. The engineers are going to come and say, this is what it'll take to build it. It's going to take 2 months to build it. It's going to take blah, blah, blah. We're going to need 4 more people in order to build this XYZ feature. Here's 4 other ways that we can build it. This is going to impact the user experience. Which one should we do? And so you have to make the decision, understanding your user base and what the needs are for the company, what the needs are for the team. Like you can't say like, no, we need to do this in 3 weeks, knowing that it's going to burn out your team. Because that's a consequence you're going to be making. They'll do it, but then that means that you're not going to be able to pull that lever for something probably more important later. So you're constantly having to be mindful of that. And so I think if any of you have watched Star Trek, I feel like the Next Generation is the one that I really appreciated. But I feel like Patrick's character, I forgot his name, Captain Kirk, I think that's his name. But that role is literally a PM's job. You don't really need to do anything. You don't do any of the work. Like you don't design the things, you don't build the things. You just tell people what to do because you have the vision, you know the direction that the team is going, and something will go wrong over here. There's a fire. You have to figure out, okay, XYZ, you go over here and solve that. You go do this. We're gonna fix this here, blah, blah, blah. And then it gets fixed, and like the team's like, thank you. And then the next fire comes over here. The next fire comes here. The product is blocked because legal said it can't have XYZ, which is a central core feature. So now you got to go talk to legal and be like, look, this is a compromise we can make here. We need to get this in. What are the other options we have? This is like whatever. And then you might have to go back to the designer to explore new different ways to do that. To do that solution. So in a way that legal feels like, okay, you took all the risk, you gave us something that mitigated all the risk. We can approve this and now you can ship it. So every day it's like that. Meetings. That's the consistency. Easily, if I'll have meetings starting at 8:30, back to back until 5:36. There are some days where I might have a couple hour break in the afternoon. What I started to do now is start scheduling breaks into my calendar in advance, even though that doesn't really get respected half the time because there's always fires. And so people are like, oh, we see you have a focus block. Can we put it over there on top? Like, can we meet at that time? So and so I just learned to do my work on the weekend, like do the thinking and the writing, because a lot of times, a lot of teams, because they're working, the different people, different parts are working in silos, and you are the middle person, you know what this person's doing. I have a lot of one-on-ones. What are you doing? What do you need help with? What do you need support with? All the different roles. And they'll be like, yeah, I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah. This is the issue I'm coming across. Okay, cool. I'm going to go to that other person and be like, hey, this person's experiencing this issue. What can we do to like fix that? Or what are you experiencing? Oh, well, we can't do this because of this. I was like, okay, it sounds like we just need to grab this third person and to make that possible. And so like you kind of are that for the team. You unblock the team to be able to do it. You're constantly keeping the pipes clean so that they can actually like deliver the thing. And then when they deliver the thing, you make sure that the quality is right. It actually meets the user's needs. And then you launch it and deal with all that. Make sure marketing is involved. Hey, marketing team, we're about to launch this project. We need your help. We need blogs. We need the Twitter. We know that our customer bases live on Discord and Reddit. We need you to send posts there. Here's the copy. I'm going to go get the content strategist to write the copy. The content strategist say, Karama, what does the copy need to say? I'm like, here's a draft. Here's all the bullet points. And then they make it look good. And then I send it to PMM. The PMM says, okay, what dates do you need it? I'm like, we need the dates on these dates, this dates, this dates. It has to be at this time, blah, blah, blah. So you're kind of doing a lot of that. And the PMM will be like, okay, well, we need pictures. And so I'll go to the designer like, hey, can you grab assets? Or I might do it myself if I have the product on my hand. But the designer, it's just better for them to do it. And then they're like, designer will throw it that way. I might see once, and if everything is like working well, I'm like, okay, what else can we be doing? Then my job is to like, what other problems can we be solving in the ecosystem or on the broader products? I'm talking to developers. I initiated a research group just to make sure we're having a tight feedback loop. When we launch something, how do they feel about it? What works, what doesn't, what bugs came up? Okay, make sure all the team is on it. And once that's like managed well, then I could expand my scope. Okay, I noticed there's a problem with our submissions. The way that you submit an app right now to our platform is really frustrating. And we have these goals as a platform to grow submissions, to grow the number of content on the apps that are available to people on our platform. So if that's the case, I need to I'm going to write up another product vision doc. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go do some research. I'm going to talk to some people on submissions teams. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is the problems that I'm seeing. I might talk to some users. Luckily, I'm in the developer community, VR developer community. So I know all the friends I can ask, like, hey, I remember these were the issues when I did it. What were your issues? What are the issues you're experiencing now? And I can kind of get a sense of, okay, this is the problem space for this product. And then, so I'll write that all down. And then I'm like, okay, based on these issues, these are the proposals for the way I think we can solve them. But I'm not saying what we should do yet. I'm like, these are all the different solutions I see. And then I source it around to the different stakeholders. Well, how does this look to you? How does this look to you? And they add their input. Oh yeah, I could also use this. Well, actually, there's something you didn't realize, but it's this thing that's actually also a problem. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I'll refine the doc based on the stakeholders, all the different experts on this issue. And then once everyone's kind of like, yeah, this looks good, I'll post it to everyone and be like, hey, submissions, we're gonna tackle this. This is what we need. This is the solutions we're gonna solve for. I need engineers. I need blah blah blah. And then the right people, like the engineering manager, my manager, will then go and find the people because they're like, the doc is so convincing. If we fix this, this is the impact we can have. If we do this, and then when they see that, and they're like, yeah, that logic makes sense. And if we can get that impact, if we can increase submissions by 3x because we did this and this and this, and if we can reduce review times from 1 month to like a week because we did fix that, in fact, fix that, and fix that, and fix that. Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's go ahead and get her the people and then build the thing. And then I create a plan, a roadmap. After that, okay, we have 6 months. This is how we're going to build it in 6 months. This is where we're going to build in the first month, second month. You can design the cadence however you want. Maybe you take a whole 6 months to build the thing. It's up to you. Based on the team we have, this is what the priority should be and how we resource it, and then launch. And then cross your fingers. The numbers look good. And then at the end of every cycle, so Facebook works in halves every 6 months. Everyone gives each other feedback. And so because you are central to all the other stakeholder roles, you might have to give feedback on like 35 different people within a week to get them the help they need. And you get feedback, and then, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have a few more questions as well. So the next question I actually have, one of the dreams of a lot of people here is to work at Facebook. I know that in our conversation, you mentioned to me about the route to working at Facebook is not necessarily straightforward. So can you just speak a little bit, because I'm conscious that we've got like 4 more questions. If you can speak a little bit about how can I actually start working at Facebook as a developer or as a product manager? What route do I have to go through to get into Facebook?
Okay, there's not any one route, and it's going to be changing every day. Facebook has very aggressive goals, thanks to last year's racial justice movement thing, to like really diversify the workforce, and it has been working. Like I said, I think I was one of maybe 6 actually female Black PMs that is now like 500x, like maybe there's like 30 or less now, which is like crazy in 2 years that I've been there, 2.5 years. what I will say this as a result, be optimistic. That's okay. There are the traditional path is you work at a Google, you somehow get into Google, you go to Ivy League, maybe you get an internship at Google or Facebook or whatever, any one of these FANG companies, and then they hire you, and then boom, you work at the company for your most of your 20s, and then you just bounce between all these different FANG companies until you decide in your 30s, when you have a family and kids, that you want to start a startup and you leave. Now that you made your money. Now that has broadened significantly because these companies are growing. Obviously these are very competitive companies. Everyone in the world is applying to Facebook. So but really you want to do is, one, find someone who works inside, get a referral, although that's less counting as much nowadays. Two, startup experience, getting experience. Like if you're not coming straight from college and you're not going to be eligible for most of the internships. So start getting experience at startups. What they're going to care about is Facebook when they interview, and I do interviews for Facebook right now too, is, are you good, like specifically for product manager? I'm imagining everyone here is going to be very different. Designer, they want to make sure you're very thoughtful in how you work. There's logic to any decision that you're making. They are seeing, are you empathetic? Like, are you going to be someone who understands the issues with others if there was a challenge? Because we move fast and there's challenges that happen all the time. Are you going to be able to troubleshoot that when that happens? How are you going to handle changes? Because Facebook's constantly changing. Things are unstable. The direction might change. Your product might get killed because they decided a different priority. How are you going to handle that when things change? And how are you going to handle it as a PM when there's fires every day? And like, are you going to be able to think well on that spot? So the interviews are not designed to like, be elitist. Like they're really, really, wanting to make sure that if you're going to come into this environment, they're setting you up for success. So they don't care about, hearing things that you think that they want to hear. A lot of people make this mistake when I do interviews. They'll say like, they'll say like, I want to work on Facebook because I want to be able to, I can make products and I know how to use data to like, and then sell it to third parties, like making sure that we're getting the right data so we can sell to a third party. And I'm like, that's I get it for media. That's what the media is saying. But Facebook's mission is to bring the world closer together. So like, that is the things that like, are you going to operate in that? Because now when I hear that, I'm like, oh, you're a little corrupt. You're also saying you're not being authentic. I don't think that is that meaningful to you? I'm going to drive data so I can, like, that's not a meaningful, So there's a lot of these things we test for authenticity. Like, are you being authentic, and and do we think that you're gonna do well here? So those are the things that they're looking for, and especially if you're underrepresented, they're going to be rooting for you. And so practice. I see this mistake so many times where I'll be interviewing a girl that's like whack, and I'm like, oh, thank God, but she did not practice. These interviews are not no joke. They are designed that you can't fake it no matter what. And I feel like I'm a really good faker. I'm a really good winger. I'm amazing at interviews and everything. I've done 30 of them. Like I've had 30 jobs. I'm really good at interviews. Facebook is not like, and Google and all of these interviews are something you have to practice on a daily basis. The first time I interviewed, my friend, she had gotten hired, and she was like, okay. I was like, hey, can you show me like, how do I interview? She's like, okay, let's do a mock interview. I said, okay, cool. We did a mock interview. She's like, oh, no. I was like, what? I was like, answer the questions. How would I design this? She's like, okay, let me show you what it looks like. And then, so she told me, ask her a question. Like, they give you some very vague question. Create a book product for books on Facebook. So you're like, what the heck? Like, what am I going to go from that, right? Can you create a framework? Like, how do you take a very ambiguous problem or question and make solution out of that and create a logic of how you're going to solve this problem? What are you going to use to inform those logical points? And then show some examples, and can you be creative on the spot? So she showed it to me, and I was like, oh, it's basically what my job was as a developer and a designer, but it's something that takes me 6 months, and I have to be able to show it in 30 minutes. So it took a lot of practice. Once she showed it to me, I was like, okay, cool. I know what to do and I know how to do this. I just need to practice this every single day because they'll ask you questions in different ways and you need to be able to like understand, okay, if I get it asked this way, it's going to mean I have to solve it a little differently. So how I'm going to do that. And you have to practice all those variations. So I would say like practice, find somebody who works at a company like Facebook or whatever. One, ask them to do a mock interview for you. Two, get, I think this is technically three, get them to give you feedback. And then 4, practice every single day. Apply for the job, but like practice it. If you can, get it like a month in advance or so. I would say take about 2 months, 6 weeks, depending on how good you feel about it. And literally carve out 2 hours a day. That's what I did. I carved out 2 hours a day every evening. I had a whiteboard room and I would just practice. And I would call in friends, other people like, hey, can you watch me? And I would do it in front of them. And when I would do it in front of people, I noticed my thought process goes out the window. And so like I had to practice that out of me, that nervousness out of me on the spot. And once I did that around the 2-month mark, by the time I got to Facebook interview and you're already like kind of nervous, I applied for the RPM, rotational product manager. This is like one of the entry points, because if you're coming in as a product manager, you usually have to have 5 years of experience at a startup or come from a Google, whatever. So RPM is one of those programs where it's like, if you have an unconventional background, they'll bring you on, you'll be entry level, and they'll wrap you around with mentorship to get you up to speed. And so that's what I did. I think like 1% of the people get in the program, but because I practiced every day for 2.5 months, by the time I got to the interview, even though I was still nervous, I still probably felt like a little bit underprepared. I was still good enough. I wasn't as nervous because I knew how to answer the questions. Whereas before, if I had not done that, I would have failed. If she had not shown me that and I did not practice, I would have failed tremendously. So that's what I would say. That's how you get into a Facebook, Instagram, Google now. Know somebody who works there, have them mock interview you, and practice. Set about 2 months to practice for those interviews, and then keep applying. And make sure that when you're applying for the role, that your resume looks like the job application. They're asking for certain skill sets, and then have as much experience as you can. Work at a startup, build that experience. Because honestly, if I had not had the experiences I had before coming to Facebook, I did not have those 20, 30 jobs, I would not have lasted a month here. That place is a beast. It's a beast. So don't feel in a rush to be at a Facebook today, because it's crazy when inside, and it is a daily challenge. It's something that can be really exciting when you're there. But if you're new and you're entry and you're learning on the job and you need mentorship, startups are where you want to live. And you get that experience, you get the ability to mess up, fail fast, whatever, and you learn very quickly. So by the time you come to a Facebook, you're prepared because you've dealt with a lot. You have a little bit of confidence, and you're going to need that confidence, especially as a Black woman, when teams are like scrutinizing you a little bit more, wondering whether or not you could be just for. You need to have the experience of having triumphed so many times to like really hold you over in those spaces.
Thank you so much. That was really, really helpful. So ladies, you would have received an email last week actually about booking career sessions. So this is a good opportunity to actually book your career sessions with myself, so we can talk through your journey and where you want to be, and also go through your Vision 20 as well. One question we have is, how have you managed to look after your well-being when wanting to make social impact and change within an industry like tech, which is male-dominated and mostly white? And now you're at Oculus, are you on a more solid income?
Yes, I'm definitely on a more solid income. Are you kidding me? Yes, I came from the nonprofit world. I'm making like money that I'm like, this is dumb money. Like, this is dumb money. And technically, because I came in at a junior level, if anybody else at Facebook had my salary, they'd probably jump off a cliff. But to me, this is dumb money. Like, I don't know what to do with this. I just keep seeing more of it in my account, and it's scary a little bit. So, and I like I said, I used to live off $50 a week. Like, I'm used to scrimping and not having enough, and like wondering like, oh shit, how am I going to pay rent next month? And so going from that to a complete 180, because I was in a startup and I was constantly worried about, I had started my own company. I was constantly underfunded. I was constantly worried about rent. I was constantly like, I'm gonna sleep on a couch in a suit. Like, that was literally my lifestyle for 13 years. As soon as I get this acceptance, my life has completely changed. It's still, to be honest, to this day, I just had a conversation with a couple of my Black female colleagues on Friday morning. We're like, okay, what do we do with these finances? Like, how do we where do we save them? What's the best way? Like, we literally are, I'm still learning this stuff. I'm still learning what to do with it. I'm starting to believe it's real, but I was scared to believe it was like, I was scared. Like, it's a very scary thing to see this amount come and you don't know if it's going to go away or if it's real or not, blah, blah, blah. So I try not to think about it at all. But now I'm finally getting to myself where I'm like, okay, I'm going to splurge, like, because we're going to your original question. Yes, it can be really stressful. I will say though, it's not as white male dominated as you think. Every team I've been on actually has been extremely diverse at Oculus and Facebook. I was on the AI team when I first joined, and I was very shocked by that. A lot of these teams are women led from different countries, immigrant people. So it felt like high school to me. It felt like, oh, these are the areas where I can really thrive. Again, though, as a Black woman, as a PM, I'm in an untraditional role, and this role really demands trust and influence. So that's where it becomes a little bit harder, because now all these teams have to they have to trust me, because their whole performance reviews, if based on impact, is going to be on me. And because I was also junior, that also just gave them the evidence they needed to not know how to do it, and I had to earn it. That's what I'm saying. I had to lean on my confidence of no, everything I've done, I've been a G at. I'm going to make it happen. And then if I can convey that in my product vision docs or whatever, the team's like, okay, we'll give you a shot. And that's all I needed. Just give me a shot. All right, cool. And then make it work. And I had a lot of mentors. I have a lot of mentors. I still, to this day, I think I probably have 7 mentors that I talk to, and vent to. I have mentors on my team. There's people who are rooting for me. So that's the beautiful thing about these places too. There's a lot of good people. Facebook has so much good people. I think that interview just screams for good people, just good character, good people who want to do well. They want their peers to be happy. There's no bullies. At least I haven't experienced bullies yet. But every single job I've had before Facebook has always been toxic, has always had a bully. I've attracted a bully or two, has always made me feel like I wasn't valuable. My work wasn't recognized. At Facebook, that's been a 180. So yes, it's white male dominated, though the way that hurts is my team, the team that I'm on right now, is the least diverse team I've been on Facebook. I've been on 4 teams, and it's mostly white male. And where I will say the culture shock that I've had dealing with that is that they operate a certain way. When there's a whole white male, they operate the loudest is the voice that gets heard. The most confident is the voice that's most trusted. It doesn't mean it doesn't need to be right. It doesn't need to have data or whatever, but if they sound really confident, even though it sounds like the most bullshitty thing ever, everyone will jump on. And so, that was a culture shock to me joining this team, because on these other teams that I was on, that was super diverse. I'm talking engineers with Muslim hijabs, female Muslim hijabs, that she was the head runner, Russian engineers, female engineers, my team were very, yeah, it was just very, very you would just not expect that. And they were, as a result, because of that, they're very much, especially I think just immigrants in general, first generation, it's what's the data? What's the proof? They don't care how you say it. They don't care if it doesn't make sense, they're gonna be like, this doesn't make sense. Can you show me what that makes sense? On this team, that's mostly white male, confidence and loudest. That's how you make influence, and that's how you can win. Logic is not as important. And so that's been my struggle on this team, where I feel or sometimes they'll do little things here where I'll say an idea and they'll lift it, and because they see their voice sounded a lot more confident. Because I'm I'll ask how do we feel about this? My ways are very inclusive, because that's how the diverse teams are. We all treat each other as equals, and we're we ask each other ideas and we weigh it with each other, and it's conversations around solutions. Where on this team, when I did that, it sounded like I was not confident. And then so somebody else with a confident voice would say, we should do X, Y, Z, what Karama would say. And they're yeah, good idea, Charles. And I'm what just happened? And so that happened a lot. That happens almost on a daily. And they're struggling so hard because they want me to feel included. So they'll try to they overcorrect. And sometimes the way that they try to support me, and it's they're I don't know. So it's just that kind of stuff. It's just, yeah. I'll have things where somebody will take credit for my work. And I have to call them out. So that's how I've been handling it. It's calling them out, but I also have professional coaches. Facebook provides professional coaches. And so when someone pisses me off, I usually go schedule a meeting with that coach. I'm like, I'm pissed. I'm angry. This is whatever. They let me talk it out. And then she gives me strategies and some articles to read on how I can like problem solve it. Then I might go to a peer PM who's more experienced and being like, hey, what should I do? What would you do if you're in this situation? Yeah, they give me advice. I have safe places. I have managers from old teams who are like, I'm invested in your success. Let's set up bi-weekly meetings and I'm here just to talk and help you troubleshoot anything you want. And so I have a lot of that. I have a lot of people who are invested in my success because they see me as an underrepresented person. They want me to do well here. They care that I feel good here. And so they volunteer their time to mentor me. And these are strangers half the time. Sometimes, like I just picked up a new stranger who used to be in my role who quit because she was pissed about certain things. And she was like, hey, I heard you're having trouble. Let's set up time. I'm happy to talk you through it. Like here's like, and I'm just like, so that's just been helpful for my mental health. And then I take the money that I have. I believe that it's real. I also went to counselors for that. I had a financial consultant that Facebook provided. I was like, I'm like scared. But talking to other Black women who also like are experiencing this and the way that they feel confident about it and like has helped me feel like, okay, this is okay. I'm just going to save a certain amount, feel safe. And then I'm going to splurge here and there. So I treat myself. I do treat myself when it's a week or 2 weeks has been just especially bad, but I overcame it. Then I'll treat myself. And I think just seeing the money keep coming back, replenishing itself, I can feel like I can't really make a dent in it really. It's been the thing that's been making me feel a lot more like safer, but I'm not there yet. Yeah.
Amazing. I feel like you have so much to say. We're probably going to have you back again another time.
Sorry.
No, but honestly, you have so much to share. I'm sure that a lot of people would add more value to a lot of people, and we'll probably, as I said to you, probably have you for one of our summits to come and speak on different things. Anyway, I'm going to give you share one more question, and then we'll have to close off today.
Okay.
Do you have any advice on finding the right startups to work for before kind of plunging into working at a company like Facebook?
Yeah, I would. So if you're finding the right startup to work for, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, what do you want to learn? Like, what is it that you feel like you need to learn to feel confident in your craft? So you could do that 2 ways. One, if you don't know what you need to learn, just go with where you're curious, go where you're passionate about. Like, this is a topic I'm passionate about. So let me join a startup that's doing that topic. Maybe it's animal care or like environmental stuff or racial justice, and find a startup that's doing that, and then apply, and then just learn about that space. When you get that first job, you're going to learn what you don't like and what you do like. You're going to learn that just because they're working on something that aligns with your mission doesn't mean the day-to-day is fun. The day-to-day could be annoying. You could find the culture pretty unhelpful. That's good things to learn. So now when you get that first baseline of this is where I enjoyed the job the most, when I was doing this and this and this is where I didn't like the job, when I was doing this and this and this. I've practiced my skill set as this trade for a number of projects I feel proud of. I'm ready to move on to find something that's more of the positive things that I liked about this job and less of those negative things. So it might be like, I need culture. I felt isolated in this one job, but I did get to do projects and I did learn a lot, and my skills are great, but I'm no longer, my heart is not happy because I'm not feeling included. I don't feel like I belong in a community. So now the next startup I work at, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to ask for a community. I'm going to make sure like, hey, if it's the topic, if you want to try a different topic, whatever. But I would just say like follow your passion, number one. Number two, after you follow your passion, if you don't have a passion yet, what are you curious about? That definitely is the next step. But I think Steve Jobs says this a lot. Follow your curiosity. Like, what are the topics that, oh, this would be interesting. I don't know anything about it. Find startups that do that. And then third, and the probably most important, what skill sets are you trying to learn? That's going to be more important than anything, especially when you're new to it. So if you're a VR developer and you want to develop for VR, look for roles that can do that. Now, I will say, as a Black woman, as someone who's tried to apply for VR developer roles, it's been really hard for me to secure the job. So I had to create those opportunities for myself. So if you're trying to go into VR development and you are applying for jobs, don't just apply and then sit back. Build things while you're applying. Build things while you're interviewing. Have like this is a age of information. You can go to YouTube, you can learn all these new tricks. You can like, I knew I can do this. I want to try doing this. Keep that muscle exercised and keep adding it to your portfolio while you're looking for these jobs. That way, one, and live blog it, share it on Twitter, share it on YouTube, because share it on LinkedIn, because actually what happens, the best way to drive recruiters asking you to join their startups is to show your work on these platforms. So my roommate is going through, she's a VR designer, just turned VR developer. She's been struggling getting recruitment for jobs or startups. So what she started doing is, while she's bored, she'll just, oh, I want to work on this new AR experience. This new feature happens. And so she made this new AR thing, and then she created a video around it and she put it on LinkedIn. And then she started, and now every day she's been doing that on a regular basis. And every single day she has different recruiters, including Facebook, hit her up and being like, can you interview for this role? We want to interview you. So they'll find you. You're only going to find so much, but there's a lot of roles that, like, for example, Facebook doesn't even have a lot of the roles posted for what we're looking for, but the recruiters will know. Just because we don't have time to post it or whatever. And so, or sometimes you just need an influx of designers. We don't really care what team they join. So that's what they're doing with her. They're like, hey, we want you to work at Oculus based on all your portfolio. Would you be willing to interview? We don't know what team you're going to join yet. There might be a few teams. We just want you to interview. And then once you interview, you come on as a free agent, and then you can find teams to work on. So post your work, learn while you're doing it. And it's okay to post shitty things as long as there's a learning thing that you're showing off. I just learned how to do XYZ. Do that. It's okay.
Really fantastic feedback there. So one of the things I always say is share your journey publicly. I know that we're encouraging yourselves to share. So share your journey publicly, take on extra projects and share it publicly. And there's a lady called Mabintu Kelly who basically started this trend called 100 Days of Code, hashtag 100 Days of Code. So again, jump on that and share your project, share what you're learning and put it on LinkedIn. Personally, as an entrepreneur, I feel like that's kind of what's really, really helped me to be able to create programs like this as well. So thank you so much, Clarama. We have to have you back. I feel like there's so much you can share with us. Yes. If there's any other questions, I'm sure that we can email them and you can share back some responses. There's plenty more, but I don't think we have so much. I don't think we have time for them. So yeah, thank you so much, Clarama. Does anyone have any last words of encouragement for Clarama for just taking time? It's really early in LA right now, so please make her feel welcome and honored as well. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. And one thing that Clarama didn't actually mention is that she actually, I believe you mentioned to me about how you helped set up the Oculus startup group or something like that, which is amazing. And there's a lot of cool stuff that's involved with that I think the ladies might be really, really interested in.
Oculus Startup Group. Oh, Oculus Start? You mean like the Oculus Start developer program?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay. Yeah, so Oculus has like a few programs for developers. I'm friends with the person who runs the Oculus Start. So if you're applying, I can just give her your names to make sure that you guys definitely get in. But they usually try to, like, if you're underrepresented, they usually try to so, how do you call it? I don't say this out loud. I don't know if this is being public or but like, yeah, like, just apply. Don't be afraid to apply. Don't be afraid. Oh, I don't have this. I don't have to. Just apply. It's okay. There's somebody on the inside who wants to make sure that this developers we're supporting are diverse and get the support that they need, especially those who are underserved. Don't worry about submitting like the best thing, but just like apply, because that's the hardest thing I think for us to do as underrepresented people. We are just so used to rejection that we don't even bother wasting our time with doing things. In this case, like Oculus really is looking for more support. So there's the Oculus Start program. They basically you apply to this thing and we give you support, like hardware. We ship the hardware to you. I don't know if there's countries or how it works by country, but typically when you join this program, they send you hardware. They'll send you whatever Quest 2s or whatever that they have, and then they send you some cool swag. And then you join the Discord channel, and the Discord channel is filled with thousands of other Oculus developers who are active every single day. And you go there to ask the questions you want. You go there to show off your projects. You go there to ask for feedback. You go there to ask questions to Oculus, like, hey, I'm struggling with this thing, this is not working, and it's an Oculus platform issue. Like, I want to report a bug. Like, this is the Discord channel that you get access to that can really help you in your day-to-day development on the platform. So and you get this community instantly as well. They do have something called Oculus Launchpad as well. This is specifically a program that this is what launched my career in VR. Was like you apply, they select 100 VR developers a year from underrepresented backgrounds. Again, I don't know how the country thing goes. I think it's US and Canada, but definitely feel free to try to apply and see what happens. That doesn't hurt. And this program is like, basically they put you in a competition. So for 3 months, but it's like the funnest thing ever. Like the community, the people who participate become your family. And you do a 2-day boot camp. They teach you all the basics for VR. You get to learn from all the different Oculus experts about all the different aspects of VR development. I do a talk specifically for Quest development. And then from there, you do 3 months of building your project, and you have access to mentors from Oculus to help you build your thing. And after 3 months, you submit it. And then based on all the submissions, there's a review team. And if they like your project, they'll fund you, and they'll fund you upwards. So we got funded $50,000 for my project. Got picked up for funding. We're one of the 13 projects that got picked up. Luckily, I did not expect it at all, because it was a bias training. I was like, this is 2017. I was like, this is going to be way too controversial for Oculus. And so I just built it because I just wanted to be able to say at the end of 3 months, I built the thing and I submitted it to the Oculus platform. That was truly my goal. I did not care about winning. I did not think I would win at all. So when that happened, I was shocked, and they gave me 50,000, which was like more, again, the first time I've ever received that money. And it was just crazy. But they can do upwards of 100,000, 150. It depends on the year and how many people they ended up selecting. So if they only pick like 4, they might give you 100,000 because they have more in the pool. But again, the point is not to win. If you want to try to win, that's fine. But the real value of it is the access to 100 other VR developers of color from different backgrounds that you become friends with. And if it was through that program that I met my mentor, she had done a talk at the boot camp. Her name is Jewel Lim. And I asked her, I was like, hey, can you give me advice? I'm trying to figure out how to do my management, project manage for this course, or through this boot camp, or this program. And she was like, yeah, she talked to me for 30-40 minutes. And then 2 months later, when I got some random email from Facebook asking me to come to like a dinner to think about applying for the role for Facebook, she was the one that helped me interview. She's the one that she was like, she had gotten the job luckily. And she was like, hey, I already got that job. I'm happy to help you interview and tell you what you need to do to practice. So that was through the Oculus Launchpad connection. And there's a lot of opportunities floating around. Then you have, because now it's like the 4th year, there's like 400 of us. So we're all alumni, we're all community. So that's just what I'll say. I'll encourage you to apply, but I understand with UK constraint that might not be possible, but just be aware that does exist. Oculus Start for sure, you should definitely apply.
Thank you so much. Again, that was really great. Thank you so much for giving out this information as well. Have a great rest of your day. We're going to give you your Saturday back. And also, thank you so much for your patience as well. Thank you.
Thank you all. It was really nice chatting with you and talking to you. I'm sorry, like I wish I could be a little bit more succinct. This is something I'm also working on with coaches, but I clearly failed today. But I appreciate it was really fun getting to chat with you and talk to you. I'm so excited that you guys are all doing this and being in VR. Like, more of us, we need it. The game needs us. And yeah, this makes me happy. Thank you, Oyen, for putting this. I'm sorry for saying your name wrong, but Oyen, for putting this all together. I'm really excited for the industry. This is, like, to me, unprecedented. And yeah, right now there's only 2 of us in Oculus, me and another Black woman that I begged her to join. And she actually does the voice commands. So if you're on Quest and you do, hey, Facebook or whatever, like, that's her product. And I think she's the first Black woman to launch her product onto the Oculus Quest store. And then I was second. I launched a Poke Parties and Traveled Together feature. But yeah, there's only 2 of us right now. So the more better, like, yeah, it's a very big company. So I just really excited to see all of us doing this now.
Awesome. Make sure you connect with Clarama on socials. She's Clarama Devilis on LinkedIn, and also Creative Clo on Twitter as well. remember, connect with her, because if you want to end up on Facebook or Oculus, knowing the right people is really important. So yeah, thank you once more, and have a fantastic evening, or speak soon. Bye.
Yes,
Don't
yeah.
forget to book your career sessions, please. It will be really helpful. Just understand your journey and where you want to go. Fantastic. Bye, everyone.